It's often assumed that wealth is easy to spot. After all, aren't the telltale signs of riches flashy cars, designer clothes, and sprawling mansions? However, in reality, some of the wealthiest individuals move through life without attracting attention to their financial status. They might look like your everyday neighbor, but beneath the surface, they possess fortunes that would make headlines. The truth is, truly wealthy people often adopt low-key, understated behaviors that disguise their prosperity. If you're observant, though, you might notice subtle and unexpected clues that hint at their secret wealth. These signs aren't always what you'd expect. They go beyond material possessions, tapping into habits, preferences, and lifestyle choices that seem mundane at first glance. But look closer, and you'll begin to notice a pattern, small but telling indicators that someone may be much richer than they appear. In this story, we'll uncover some of these crazy, often overlooked signs that suggest someone is secretly rich, and how these behaviors contrast sharply with the more stereotypical signs of wealth. You might be surprised at how someone right under your nose could be living a life of affluence without ever tipping you off. The hidden luxury of time. One of the first signs of secret wealth is how someone uses their time. Rich people know that time is their most valuable asset, and you'll often notice that they guard it fiercely. While others may be scrambling to complete tasks or juggling multiple responsibilities, secretly wealthy individuals are often free from the constraints of time. Take the example of Emily, a seemingly ordinary woman who worked part-time at a local library. She lived in a modest house in a quiet suburb, drove an unremarkable car, and dressed plainly. Yet her lifestyle held a strange mystery. Despite her job not appearing to pay much, Emily was never in a hurry. She always had time to read books, travel leisurely, and volunteer for causes that didn't earn her any money. Her friends would often wonder how Emily could afford to live such a laid-back lifestyle. Most people in their circle were juggling demanding jobs and side hustles just to keep up with bills, but Emily seemed to move through life at her own pace, never stressed about work or deadlines. What they didn't realize was that Emily had inherited a significant sum of money from a distant relative years ago. Instead of flaunting her wealth, she chose to live simply, preferring the luxury of time over material possessions. For her, the ultimate sign of wealth was freedom, not just financial freedom, but the freedom to spend her days as she pleased. Those who observed her might not have guessed her wealth, but the way she spent her time was a clear indicator of her financial security. Subtle generosity. Another telltale sign of secret wealth is a person's generosity. However, this generosity is not the flashy kind where someone donates millions to charities and publicized events. Rather, it's the quiet, often unnoticed acts of kindness that set these individuals apart. Consider James, a high school teacher who lived a simple life. His clothes were always neat but not expensive, and his car was an older model that he'd driven for years. What set James apart wasn't his appearance, but the way he was always willing to help others without making a big deal out of it. For example, James would frequently buy lunch for his students if he noticed they were short on money. He would cover the cost of field trips for kids whose parents couldn't afford it, all without drawing attention to himself. When a colleague's car broke down, James quietly paid for the repairs, asking for nothing in return. It was only much later that people discovered James had accumulated considerable wealth through smart investments and a modest inheritance. He didn't need to work as a teacher but did so out of passion for education. His wealth allowed him to give generously in small, personal ways, far from the spotlight. This quiet generosity was a strong but subtle indicator of his financial stability. An eye for quality, not quantity. Another surprising sign that someone is secretly rich is their preference for quality over quantity. This doesn't mean they buy the most expensive items, but rather, they invest in durable, high-quality goods that last a long time. Secretly wealthy people tend to value craftsmanship and longevity over trendy or showy items. For instance, Clara, a lawyer in her mid-40s, always dressed in simple, classic outfits. She wasn't the type to follow fashion trends or shop for new clothes every season. In fact, Many of her colleagues had noticed that she wore the same pair of leather boots every winter for years. What they didn't know was that those boots were custom made by a master cobbler, and though they didn't have a designer label, they cost more than most people's entire wardrobes. Clara applied the same principle to other areas of her life as well. She bought fewer items but spent on high quality, well crafted things that would last for decades. Her home, though modest in size, was filled with beautiful, timeless furniture that had been handpicked for its durability and craftsmanship. Her car, too, was a high end model, though it was several years old and didn't scream luxury from the outside. This appreciation for quality over quantity often distinguishes secretly wealthy people from those who flaunt their wealth through trendy, flashy purchases. Clara's unassuming wardrobe and home hid the fact that she was worth millions, thanks to her careful investments and a keen eye for timeless quality. A calm approach to money. People who are secretly rich often have a calm, almost indifferent attitude toward money. This might seem counterintuitive, but those who have accumulated wealth over time know that money is a tool, not something to obsess over. You'll rarely see them stressing about bills or chasing after deals. Instead, they handle their finances with a calm confidence that can be easy to miss. Mark was an excellent example of this. He worked as a freelance graphic designer, taking on only a few clients a year. His friends always wondered how he managed to make ends meet, given that his workload was so light. While they were constantly worried about saving and budgeting, Mark seemed to live comfortably without ever discussing money. The secret to Mark's calm demeanor was his financial independence. Years ago, he had made a series of smart investments in the stock market, which had quietly grown into a substantial nest egg. His freelance work wasn't a necessity, but something he enjoyed doing. He never flaunted his wealth or talked about it, but his relaxed attitude toward money was a clear sign that he had little to worry about financially. People often mistake this kind of financial calmness for a lack of wealth, assuming that if someone isn't working hard or stressing about money, they must be struggling. But in reality, it's often the opposite. Mark's quiet confidence with money was a reflection of his financial security, a subtle, yet powerful, sign of his hidden wealth. Low-key travel habits. One more sign that someone might be secretly rich is their approach to travel. While some wealthy individuals flaunt their riches through extravagant vacations, flying first class, and staying at luxury resorts, the truly rich often take a more low-key approach. Lucy, for instance, was known among her friends for her love of travel, but she never bragged about it. Instead of posting photos from five-star hotels or exotic destinations, Lucy would quietly take off on extended trips to less touristy places. She preferred staying in quaint bed and breakfasts or renting small cottages in remote areas. Her trips were long, often lasting several months, but she rarely talked about them or shared photos. What her friends didn't realize was that Lucy had a hidden fortune thanks to a successful tech startup she had sold years ago. She could have easily afforded the most luxurious vacations, but she preferred to travel under the radar, enjoying experiences over luxury. Her love for travel wasn't about showing off, but about discovering new places and cultures quietly. Lucy's low-key approach to travel is a hallmark of many secretly wealthy people. They don't need to flaunt their trips with lavish accommodations or social media posts. Instead, they focus on the experiences, often opting for longer, more meaningful journeys that don't scream rich. This understated approach to travel is another subtle but significant sign of hidden wealth. Conclusion. Secretly wealthy people don't fit the typical image of the rich. They don't flaunt their wealth with flashy cars or designer clothes. Instead, they exhibit small, often unnoticed signs: an abundance of free time, quiet generosity, a preference for quality, calmness around money, and low-key travel habits.